The alien girl offered her sleeping bag to the human. What happened next was surprising. The moon's surface was a jagged expanse of frozen rock and snow, stretching in every direction with no sign of life. No warmth, no movement, no hope. Ethan had landed here as part of a routine survey mission for the Interstellar Research Federation. Routine, he now thought bitterly, was a word for people who had never faced the raw emptiness of space. He had not anticipated the shuttle's engine malfunction. It had been a minor issue at first, a strange vibration in the controls, easily dismissed as a glitch. But when he tried to restart it, the thrusters had sputtered and died, leaving him stranded. Alone. Ethan's fingers ached, even inside thick gloves. Every breath he drew came out in a visible puff, and he realized his oxygen supply was slowly dropping. The temperature had fallen far below safe limits, and the emergency shelter he had managed to deploy offered little protection. Shivering uncontrollably, he crouched against a rock and wrapped his arms around himself, trying to preserve what little warmth he had. "Come on, Ward," he muttered to himself. "You survived worse than this." But even as he said it, he knew the isolation was more dangerous than the cold. Out here, help would not come, not today, not tomorrow, not ever, maybe. Then he saw her. At first he thought it was a mirage. A flicker of light moving over the icy ridge in the distance. It was too small to be a shuttle, too bright to be a reflection. And then she stepped closer, slightly taller than a child, but her shape was clearly humanoid. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost like the auroras he had seen on distant gas giants. Pale blue with a faint glow that pulsed softly with each movement. Ethan froze. His mind raced. Stories of alien encounters were full of horror, abductions, experiments, hostile intelligence. And yet there she was, standing calmly, holding a compact bundle of fabric, a sleeping bag. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to retreat, to hide behind the rocks. But every nerve in his body also screamed that he had nowhere to go. His survival depended on making a choice. The girl, he guessed she was about 10 or 12 years old by human standards, took a careful step forward, then another, and finally stopped a few meters away. She lowered the sleeping bag to the snow, gesturing toward it. Ethan blinked. You want me to take it?" he asked, his voice cracking in the freezing air. The girl nodded, tilting her head slightly, her glowing eyes wide and calm. She did not speak. Perhaps she did not use words. Perhaps she did not have to. He hesitated. Every instinct told him not to trust her, yet every second spent outside was slowly leeching away his life. Hypothermia would take him long before he could decide whether she was friend or foe. Ethan swallowed hard. "All right," he said. He took a cautious step forward, then another, until he stood over the sleeping bag. He slid inside and felt the warmth hit him immediately. Not just warmth, but comfort. It was like sinking into the perfect temperature. His hands stopped shaking, his breath slowed. He could feel the bag adjusting to him, almost as if it knew exactly how to preserve his body heat. He looked at her. This is incredible. What is it made of?" The girl simply smiled faintly and turned away, settling a few steps back in the snow. She did not seem concerned about the cold at all. Ethan marveled at her. She was small, fragile-looking, yet somehow radiated an aura of confidence. Her glowing skin was mesmerizing, a soft light that made the icy world feel less empty, less hostile. He realized he had been so focused on survival that he hadn't noticed the beauty of this place. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time seemed meaningless in the storm. Outside, the wind howled like a living thing, battering rocks and snow against the frozen ground. Inside the sleeping bag, Ethan felt safe, warm, alive. Eventually, he dared to peek out. The girl was still there, standing quietly, watching him. Her gaze was not threatening. It was curious, patient, almost protective. "Who are you?" Ethan whispered, though he knew she might not understand. She tilted her head again and reached out a hand. A small, glowing object hovered above her palm, a device of some kind. Ethan didn't recognize the technology, but instinct told him it was not dangerous. The device pulsed lightly as if syncing with his heartbeat. He realized with a start that the sleeping bag was more than just insulation. It was alive, or at least semi-living. Somehow, it was aware of him. It had monitored his body temperature, his stress, even his exhaustion. It adapted to him, protected him, almost like it had a mind of its own. The thought was astonishing. He had read about adaptive materials and bioengineering in research journals, but nothing like this had ever been tested on humans. And yet here it was, functioning perfectly, saving his life in the middle of a frozen wasteland on an alien moon. The girl crouched a little, observing his reactions. Ethan felt no fear this time, only wonder. This was not a hostile encounter. This was care, protection. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice shaking from a mixture of cold and emotion. "I don't know why you're helping me, but thank you." The girl nodded once. Then she did something that made Ethan blink in surprise. She backed away a few steps, then vanished into the swirling snowstorm as suddenly as she had appeared. Alone again, Ethan lay in the sleeping bag, staring up at the dimly glowing sky. For the first time since the shuttle failed, he felt hope. Somehow, this small alien girl had reminded him that even in the coldest, loneliest corners of the galaxy, kindness could exist. And that maybe, just maybe, humans were not as alone in the universe as he had always believed. Hours passed. The blizzard raged on. Ethan drifted in and out of sleep, wrapped in the bag's adaptive warmth. His dreams were strange and vivid. He dreamt of glowing cities carved into ice, of beings who communicated without words, of strange forests of crystal that hummed with life. And through it all, the girl appeared, guiding him, smiling at him, her presence reassuring. When he awoke, the storm had lessened. The snow still fell lightly, but the wind had died down. Ethan crawled out of the sleeping bag, feeling stronger than he had in days. His body ached, but he felt alive, alert, ready to face whatever came next. And then he saw her again. She was waiting for him at the edge of the ridge, no sleeping bag this time, no glowing device in hand. She simply looked at him and gestured. Ethan understood immediately. She wanted him to follow. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to retreat to the shuttle and hide. But something in her eyes told him it was safe. It was more than safe, it was an invitation. He took a deep breath, tightened the straps on his suit, and stepped forward. Each foot crunching against the snow felt heavier than the last, but he didn't stop. He moved toward her, and as he did, the frozen landscape seemed less threatening, less empty. The girl led him to a small cavern at the base of a ridge. It was hidden, almost invisible against the ice, but its entrance glowed faintly, as if welcoming them. Inside, the walls shimmered with embedded crystals that cast soft light across the floor. It was warm here, the air breathable and slightly humid, a sharp contrast to the outside cold. Ethan's jaw dropped. This is incredible," he whispered. How is this possible?" The girl smiled. This time he thought he understood a little more. She was not just saving him. She was showing him something important. He stepped inside, and the door of ice sealed quietly behind them. For the first time since he had landed on Kalara 7, Ethan felt truly safe. And he had no idea what the night would bring, or what secrets this mysterious alien girl might reveal. But one thing was certain. His life had already changed forever. The cavern's soft light wrapped around Ethan like a warm blanket. The ice door had sealed behind him, and the outside storm had faded into a dull roar, distant and harmless. His boots crunched over smooth crystal floors as he took tentative steps forward. The alien girl, Lyra, floated a few steps ahead, her faint glow illuminating the path. Ethan's mind raced. What is this place? How is it alive? And why is she helping me? He had survived the night in the adaptive sleeping bag, but that had been only the beginning. Now he was in a world far stranger than any human had seen before. The walls of the cavern shimmered with embedded crystals, refracting light into colors Ethan couldn't name. Some glowed softly like living lanterns. Others pulsed gently as if responding to his heartbeat. "Is this real?" Ethan asked, his voice echoing softly. Lyra stopped and turned toward him. For the first time, she raised her hands in a motion that looked almost like an invitation. Then, without a word, she pressed her hand against the nearest crystal. The crystal pulsed brighter, sending a ripple of light across the cavern walls. Ethan felt a faint tingle running through his body, not painful but strange, like the crystals were touching his thoughts. He shivered, not from cold but from awe. "This place," he whispered. "It's incredible. How can you live here?" Lyra tilted her head slightly and gestured for him to follow deeper into the cavern. Ethan obeyed. Each step brought him to a new wonder. Walls carved into intricate patterns, glowing symbols he didn't recognize, and streams of light that moved like liquid across the floors. At the far end of the cavern, a larger room opened up, revealing a cluster of structures that looked like small towers, but made entirely of glowing crystal. He stopped in his tracks. "Are those houses?" Lyra smiled faintly and pointed to one of the towers. Then she extended both hands and slowly drew a line from one tower to another, as if showing him the connections between them. Ethan realized that this was not just a living space. It was a small settlement, carefully hidden under the ice, alive in a way humans had never imagined. And then he noticed something else. A faint humming filled the air, a sound that seemed to vibrate in his chest. It was not noise, it was music, soft and layered, almost like the pulse of a heartbeat. He felt calmer than he had in days, almost as if the cavern itself were welcoming him. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, and she extended a small, spherical device. Ethan took it cautiously. The sphere projected holographic images into the air, rotating shapes, glowing maps of stars, and diagrams of strange machinery. He frowned. "Are these star charts?" The sphere pulsed in response. Then suddenly, images of humans appeared, faces, activities, objects he recognized. Ethan blinked. It was as if Lyra's people had been observing humans, studying them. "You've been watching humans?" Ethan asked quietly. Lyra nodded, tilting her head. Then, to his surprise, she reached out her hand, and a wave of warmth and light flowed into his mind. He staggered back slightly, overwhelmed. Then came a voice, not spoken aloud but inside his head. "We have watched your kind. We wanted to see if you are worthy." Ethan's mind raced. "Worthy of what?" the voice continued. "We value compassion, we value courage, and we value ingenuity, traits your species has, even in small measure." Ethan swallowed hard. "So, the sleeping bag, it wasn't just to keep me alive?" "No," the voice replied. "It was a test, a measure of your trust and patience. You did not hesitate to accept help. You survived. You adapted. You are promising." He felt a mix of pride and disbelief. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy. They were clever, adaptable, emotional, unpredictable, traits that many advanced species considered weaknesses. Yet here was proof that humanity could survive in ways even sophisticated aliens could not predict. Lyra turned and gestured toward a narrow passage leading further into the cavern. Ethan hesitated. What is that?" he asked. "A place of learning," the voice said. "A place where bonds are tested. If you are willing, you may see more of our world and your role in it." Ethan's curiosity overpowered his fear. "I want to see," he said. The passage opened into a vast chamber, taller than anything Ethan had imagined. Crystalline structures spiraled upward like towers of glass, their surfaces shimmering with colored light. At the center of the chamber stood a circle of strange objects, floating, rotating devices that emitted soft hums. Ethan noticed symbols etched into the floor that resembled constellations, but arranged in ways unfamiliar to him. This is incredible," Ethan whispered. "It's like a library or a laboratory or a temple." Lyra simply smiled and gestured for him to step into the circle. As he did, he felt a strange sensation, like the room was aware of him. His thoughts seemed to echo in the air, and the floating devices responded, shifting and glowing in response to his emotions. A challenge appeared before him. The devices began to form a pattern, a puzzle of sorts. Symbols lit up in sequence, then faded. Ethan realized he had to replicate the pattern, but not with exact precision. The pattern responded to logic, creativity, and intuition. He hesitated. The aliens clearly valued intelligence and thought, but he noticed something different. The puzzle didn't just test intellect, it tested empathy. Certain sequences required him to anticipate how the devices might feel or respond. Ethan closed his eyes and let his instincts guide him. He remembered how the sleeping bag had adjusted to him, how it had understood him. Using the same principle, he considered the device's movements, their light patterns, their rhythms. Slowly, he traced the correct sequence, his hands moving in tandem with his thoughts. The devices pulsed in approval. The circle glowed brighter and a wave of warmth spread through the chamber. Ethan felt exhilarated. He had succeeded. Lyra stepped forward, her glowing eyes bright with approval. "You see," the voice said, "your mind is not only clever, it is compassionate. It can adapt. It can create solutions we do not always anticipate. This is why we value your kind." Ethan nodded, still catching his breath. He realized this was more than a test. It was an introduction to a partnership. These beings were not hostile. They were cautious, studying him to see if humans could be allies, contributors, friends. As he absorbed this revelation, Lyra led him deeper into the chamber. They reached a platform suspended above a small pool of glowing liquid. Reflections danced across the crystalline walls, casting rainbow-like patterns everywhere. On the platform were objects Ethan could barely comprehend, small machines, devices that seemed to defy gravity, and holographic panels showing star systems in motion. "This is incredible," he breathed. "All of this, hidden beneath ice and humans have never known." Lyra nodded. Then she did something unexpected. She extended her hand and placed it gently on his shoulder. Another wave of warmth flowed into him, and suddenly he felt a connection, not just to her but to the entire place. He could sense the flow of energy, the subtle pulse of life within the crystals, the rhythm of the floating devices. He realized that this world was alive in its own way. "We hope your people will join us," the voice said. "We hope they will see what humans can offer: compassion, courage, and creativity. But first, you must return and survive. Learn, teach, grow. Show that your kind is worthy of trust." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of the responsibility. He had come here as a stranded human, vulnerable and alone. Now he carried knowledge and insight that could change humanity's place in the galaxy. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Lyra handed him a small, compact device. It resembled a mini version of the adaptive sleeping bag. She did not explain its function, but Ethan instinctively understood. It was a gift, a symbol of trust, and perhaps a tool to help him in the challenges ahead. Before leaving, Ethan paused and looked back at the chamber. The glowing structures, the floating devices, the subtle music. It was a place beyond human imagination, a place that challenged every notion of reality he had ever known. And yet, he felt honored to witness it. Stepping out of the cavern, he realized that the storm had passed entirely. The sky above Kalara 7 was clear, revealing a sea of stars, more dazzling than any view he had ever seen from Earth orbit. He took a deep breath, feeling both small and infinitely significant at the same time. Lyra gestured toward the ridge again, silently guiding him back toward the outpost. But Ethan's mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about what he had learned, what he had witnessed, and the responsibility now resting on his shoulders. Humans could be underestimated, overlooked, dismissed, but here, in this hidden alien world, he had proven that they could be remarkable. As he trudged through the snow, his new device securely attached to his pack, Ethan realized one truth more powerful than any survival skill or technology. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, dreamers, and allies in ways that even the most advanced species might not predict. And he was going to make sure they proved it. The frozen moon of Kalara 7 stretched endlessly beneath the stars, a silent world of ice and shadows. Yet inside Ethan Ward, something had changed. He had faced the blizzard, survived thanks to the alien girl's mysterious sleeping bag, and uncovered a hidden civilization beneath the ice. Now, he carried knowledge and understanding that could alter humanity's place in the galaxy. Lyra floated beside him as they climbed a narrow ridge, her faint glow casting a soft light on the snow. The air was crisp, almost pleasant, a sharp contrast to the storm that had nearly claimed him before. Ethan adjusted the small device Lyra had given him, a compact, adaptive sleeping bag that pulsed lightly, as if alive. He could feel its warmth synchronizing with his body. Somehow, he knew it would be more than just a sleeping tool. "You are ready," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm, not spoken aloud but inside his mind as before. Ethan nodded. I think I understand now. It's not just about survival, it's about proving that humans can contribute, that we matter." "Yes," the voice in his head replied. "You must show courage, creativity, and compassion. That is what your kind brings to the universe." They reached the top of the ridge, and Lyra gestured toward a large plateau below. There, a vast arena-like structure waited, crystal platforms suspended over glowing liquid, floating devices hovering and spinning, and luminous symbols etched into the ground. This was the final challenge, the culmination of everything Ethan had learned. Ethan felt a twinge of fear but also excitement. Every step in this strange alien world had tested him, and now he would face the ultimate test. Lyra guided him to the center of the arena. "The challenge," she said telepathically, "is not only for skill or strength. It is for insight, for understanding, for seeing what others do not." Ethan took a deep breath. Around him, the floating devices began to shift, forming patterns and symbols. Unlike before, this challenge was dynamic. The symbols changed constantly, reacting to his thoughts, his emotions, even his intuition. He realized immediately that purely logical solutions would fail. He would have to think like a human, but also like a bridge between species. The first trial appeared, a sequence of lights that required him to press certain panels in order. He tried to apply logic at first, but the patterns kept shifting. Then he remembered the sleeping bag, how it had adapted to him. "Maybe I need to trust my instincts," he thought. Closing his eyes for a moment, he let his intuition guide his hands. The lights aligned. The first stage passed. Encouraged, he moved to the second trial. This time, he had to direct energy streams to floating crystals scattered across the arena. Each crystal reacted differently. Some pulsed stronger when he approached calmly, others only when he acted decisively. He realized the task was designed to test emotional intelligence. Ethan hesitated. He had always relied on logic and training, but now he had to combine thought with feeling. Slowly, he began to observe the subtle rhythms of the crystals. He moved gently at first, then faster, letting the crystal's responses guide him. Step by step, he solved the puzzle, feeling a thrill of connection, not just to the objects, but to the alien energy that permeated the arena. The final trial loomed, a massive, rotating device with panels of shifting symbols, glowing brighter than the rest. This was clearly the ultimate test. Ethan realized the challenge was no longer about manipulating objects. It was about insight, creativity, and compassion. He had to consider not only the mechanics, but the needs of the alien systems themselves. He recalled Lyra's gaze from the cavern, the quiet patience, the trust she had placed in him. Then he remembered the sleeping bag, how it had adapted to his body, protected him, understood him. This is the same principle, he thought. I need to understand the system, not force it. Ethan studied the rotating device carefully. Symbols flashed and moved rhythmically, as if trying to communicate. He noticed small patterns, subtle pulses and shifts that hinted at what the system wanted. Instead of pressing panels randomly, he began to anticipate the flow, adjusting his movements in harmony with the rotations. Slowly, the device slowed, lights aligning into a perfect circle. A wave of warmth spread through the arena. The floating crystals and panels glowed brighter than ever. Ethan stepped back, breathing heavily, realizing he had completed the final challenge. Lyra's glow intensified, pulsing in rhythm with the devices. "You see," the voice said in his mind, "you have succeeded because you are human. Your kind combines logic, creativity, and empathy in ways we cannot predict. That is why we value you." Ethan felt a surge of pride and relief. He had faced impossible challenges, alien systems, and an entirely unfamiliar environment, and he had adapted, thrived, and succeeded. Then Lyra moved closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. The touch sent a warmth through him deeper than the sleeping bag could provide. A soft glow spread from her hand into his chest, as if transferring something intangible: trust, understanding, respect. "The universe is larger than your people imagine," the voice said. "But now you know that humanity is capable of more than you realize. Your kind can survive, innovate, and inspire. You can be allies, partners, and teachers. The sleeping bag, the tests, they were just the beginning." Ethan nodded. He understood. Humanity was often underestimated. Others saw humans as unpredictable, emotional, or weak. But in moments like this, facing the unknown, trusting instincts, showing compassion, they were stronger than most species. Lyra guided him back toward the entrance of the arena. Outside, the sky above Kylara 7 glimmered with stars. The ice glowed faintly, reflecting the alien energy from below. Ethan's pack contained the adaptive sleeping bag, a symbol of trust and a tool he knew would save lives in the future. "Will I see you again?" he asked. She tilted her head, a faint smile spreading across her glowing face. Then she raised her hand and disappeared into the icy horizon, leaving only a faint trail of light behind her. Ethan watched her vanish, then turned his gaze to the stars. He felt a mix of awe and determination. His experience on Kylara 7 was no longer just a personal survival story, it was a revelation. Humans could do incredible things. They could survive the coldest, most hostile places in the galaxy. They could build trust, adapt to unknown challenges, and solve problems in ways no other species might anticipate. As he began the long trek back to his shuttle, Ethan reflected on everything he had learned. The cavern, the city, the floating devices, and the tests, they had all been lessons. Lessons not just about survival, but about human potential. And he knew that when humanity reached further into the stars, these lessons would matter. The shuttle was still buried under snow, but Ethan no longer felt desperation. He had survived impossible conditions before, and he carried knowledge, tools, and confidence to guide him now. More than that, he carried a new understanding of what humans could be: adaptable, creative, compassionate. Days passed as he repaired his shuttle with limited tools, using insights he had gained from observing Lyra's people. The adaptive sleeping bag helped him survive long nights and extreme conditions, while the patterns he had learned in the cavern guided his problem-solving in ways that felt almost instinctual. Finally, the shuttle thrusters roared to life. Ethan climbed aboard, watching the icy world fade beneath him. But in his mind, he carried Kylara 7 with him, the glowing crystals, the floating devices, the trust of a small alien girl who had believed in him. And he carried a promise. Humanity would not waste the opportunity he had been given. Humans would reach further, explore more, and prove that even species underestimated by the galaxy could become extraordinary. As he punched coordinates for the nearest research station, Ethan smiled. The universe was vast, full of mysteries and challenges, But he was no longer afraid. He knew that humanity, resourceful, courageous, and compassionate, was ready. Lyra's gift, the sleeping bag, pulsed lightly against his back. It was more than a tool. It was a symbol, a reminder, a seed for what was possible when trust and ingenuity came together. Ethan realized that the most surprising thing about the encounter was not her gift, or even the city beneath the ice, but the truth about humans themselves. They were stronger, smarter, and more capable than anyone, alien or human, could have predicted. And the stars awaited.